Creative Wonder, the podcast where we talk shop, spill secrets, and occasionally pretend we have everything figured out. I'm your host, Tay Hislop, a photographer who helps marketers make their products, people, and services look so good they practically sell themselves. I've always been curious about how other creatives run their businesses, how they find clients, market themselves, and somehow turn ideas into actual income. So I made this podcast as an excuse to ask them all those questions. Each episode, I sit down with creative professionals to dig into their marketing strategies, how they use photography, and the real story behind how they got to where they are. The wins, the weird pivots, and the what am I even doing moments. All right, let's get into it. Okay, right. Lily, so great to be able to chat with you and talk about marketing and your career and things like that.
Well, thanks for the invite.
I want to learn a little bit more about how you got into marketing and your career, and when was the moment you realized this is something that I really want to do?
Well, the only thing I was really good at was art. So I figured, okay, I'm going to go to art college. And my parents thought, okay, great, she's never going to get a job. But I kind of fell into advertising. I didn't know what to expect when I went to when I went to OCAD at all. But I ended up taking a design advertising course, and I just fell in love with the whole idea of branding and advertising. I thought that's what I want to do. The graphic design part was great because you do need it as an art director, but the whole idea of coming up with insightful, creative ideas to launch a product, to create a brand around a product was kind of what I wanted. And kind of for 90% of my career, that's what I was doing.
So tell me a little bit about the job that you're in right now. Um, what kind of projects, like what do you do as far as your job goes? Like obviously
I
you're a
mean,
creative director with an agency,
it's
marketing agency.
okay. This is why I don't want this to go on video. Is my kind of title's a bit of a vanity title because I don't creative direct anybody. I'm kind of like my own. I was for the longest time the sole person in the creative department.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Flying Camel is still a creative agency, but they're really focused on social media, PR, digital. So it's not really advertising in the sense that kind of what I kind of in the last 30 years, what I was doing, but it's still finding creative ways to talk to people on social media and to, communicate the brand in, trying to find creative ways to do it without always saying, okay, well, this is the trend. Let's just do the trend. It's great to follow the trend because that's what people are connecting to, but it's always nice to be the one who is creating the trend and that people are following. So trying to still be that kind of launch, to be the person who kind of creates that kind of idea that people will end up gravitating towards.
Yeah, absolutely. That totally makes sense. What are maybe some challenges or risks that you've taken in the past that have shaped your career, do you think?
I think when in advertising branding, you're constantly trying to take a risk because that risk, that idea, that big idea that people say, is what people are going to gravitate towards. So the more different you are, the more insightful you are, the kind of that aha moment that people will end up looking at that idea and say, oh my God, I never even thought of looking at that idea that way or launching the product that way. So in advertising and in branding, you're always trying to take a risk because that risk is what's going to get you noticed and get your brand noticed.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
there's not one particular, um, there's something I did create, but it's so long ago, no one would remember it. And it was for Lysol. And it was this whole idea that the best cleaning ladies people have ever had were people of ethnicity. And at the time, it was just like, oh, you can't talk about that. You can't show someone who's of different ethnic origin and speaking a different language and on TV, and you're making fun of them. You're like, you're bringing them down. It's just like, no, we're not bringing them down. We're saying they make the best cleaning people, and they're the ones, most people gravitate towards. And the fact that Lysol Canada actually did a commercial with an ethnic cleaning lady that we created was great, and it did get noticed. It did great for them in the marketplace. It won us awards. I mean, so that was probably the biggest risk that we took as an agency and as a brand to actually go out and say, you know what, we're going to stick with our guns. We're going to do this. We're going to stand by it. And we believe in it. And it worked like gangbusters. So I think internally, we always put up the red flags because that's what we do to try to protect our clients and our agency. But sometimes you just have to kind of go for it. 9 times out of 10, it usually works in your favor. There is that 1% where it might backfire a little bit, but
Yeah.
if there's a way to justify it, you just have to kinda try it and go for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
Absolutely.
that's the big thing that I find European creative agencies take bigger risks than North
Do
American
they?
agencies. They do. I think they if and that's one of the things I look at a lot still, is what they're doing in the European market and Asian
Mhm.
market and South Asian market. They take a lot bigger risks when it comes to communicating their branding than North America does.
Well, I think when it comes to Europe, and I mean, I'm not an expert in this field, but I know as far as their culture goes, it's much more liberal, with, they're more free to say and do and be, and we're a little bit more conservative over
Yeah,
here.
North America is a lot more conservative, and it's funny because all those European, South Asian, Asian people have come to Canada, so they're kind of used to that kind of communication, so the fact that we kind of take a step back and have become very conservative is crazy to me. I've always thought that was crazy.
I remember one time I was traveling in Sweden and I was in this train station and I looked up and there was these massive posters, I would have to say 12, 14 feet tall on the wall. And it was just like two naked women, not a stitch of clothing on them. And I was like, I don't
Hey,
even
you
know.
know, that would never fly back
That
home,
would
so
never
you
fly over here. And
yeah.
I don't even know what the advertisement was for, but I was like, whoa, that's different.
Yeah, and for them, it's just like, "Yeah, okay, whatever."
Yeah, they don't care.
Yeah,
They're used
and
to
it's
it,
funny,
right?
it's like how they that kind of culture in Europe is, again, so liberal, and then when they come over here, it's so conservative. I'm sure they find it like, you know,
Confining.
we can walk around the streets with a drink in our hand, and here it's just like, "No, you can't leave this fenced little area." You know what I mean? So
So true, so true. Are there any moments in your career that really have taught you lessons about leadership or creativity, that would be memorable?
you know what? That all comes down to I don't think there's, like, again, one moment. I have been lucky enough to work with so many great, talented people. Like, I've had amazing, talented creative directors that I have learned from, account people, like food stylists, strategists. There's just so many people out there that, you know, are great and that I have learned from, but I can't say there's one thing that has kind of been the aha moment.
Mhm.
It's
That's
really
fair.
like, it's that ability. It's so weird now that this hybrid kind of working space where you're not surrounded by people that you work with, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, whatever the case. I mean, in the past, it used to be 6 days a week. But you kinda learn and feed off of people that you work with. I mean, the more talent you're surrounded by, the more talented you become just by osmosis, right?
Do you think it's difficult with working from home more often to, be creative if you're not around other creative people?
I think people coming into the industry, younger people, I think the whole hybrid thing is gonna be detrimental to them. Because I think you do I mean, me, I'm old, I'm, like, kind of, like, at the end of my career, but I think for younger people coming in, I think it is important to be surrounded by people who are talented and have different things to offer.
Mhm, there's so
It's
much to
great.
learn from people who have already been in the business for so long,
Yeah,
right?
and it's great to be able to be, like, working on something, whether you're individually or as a team, and to be able to walk it around to other creative people and say, "What do you think of this? What do you think of that?" I think it's harder when you're working from home and you're remote. So, I mean, I hope agency-wise, they go back to that kind of 5 days a week because I think you do benefit from it as a creative person.
Yeah, and I
Absolutely.
totally see that for myself too when I'm around other people that are creatives. It just so inspiring just to be around other people that are doing interesting things.
Yeah, and the conversation sparks and an idea sparks from that conversation that you didn't even intend to have an idea come out of it, but suddenly, "Oh my god, that's a great idea." Like, you just wanna go back and see how can I craft it into what I'm doing kinda thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I get that. What tools, habits, or rituals help you stay sharp creatively?
For me, I still do a lot of looking at awards annuals, see what creative that we never get exposed to that has been, winning awards. Looking at work that's done in Europe and South Asia because again, as I said, like they're doing the more, a cutting edge kind of creative. Um,
And when you say South Asia, like what kind
like
of
India.
countries?
It's
India?
amazing how much great work comes out of India, but of course,
Really?
we never see it because
Yeah,
that's not
no.
our market, but when you go through, award shows, it's amazing to see the work that's coming out of there. It is absolutely stellar, like, what they're doing out there. Um, so that's kind of my go-to when it comes to, like, creative inspiration.
Mhm.
But, I mean, nowadays, I mean, playing around with AI tools has been a big thing, so
Yeah,
kind of playing around with that, and it's great and scary at the same time,
I know. I
because
totally agree.
you can get really good really fast with those kind of, with those tools as long as you start to learn, what are the right prompts to get the results that I need. I mean, it's
Mhm.
still expensive and it's still a lot of hit and miss, a lot of more miss than hits. Um yeah, but it's playing around with those kind of things in terms of tools, especially when you're in a small agency, you're not really hiring external people to do certain resource, certain creative. So you're trying to do a lot of things yourselves in-house. So bigger agencies have the luxury because they have bigger budgets to be able to kind of outsource and get other people who have more experience in certain fields to do things. So
Mhm.
yeah, even with AI with, Photoshop and Illustrator, it's constantly evolving, constantly changing, and playing around with, what's going on with that, with editing, etcetera.
Mhm. I haven't even explored the most recent tools, the AI tools that have recently come out with Photoshop. I'm still dipping my toe into,
Yeah,
like,
and it takes a while to figure out, okay, what
that.
works, doesn't work, what's the right command for this? What am I saying wrong in order to generate something, you know?
Absolutely. What do you think most brands get wrong about creativity in marketing?
It's hard to say what they get wrong. I'm not too sure if it's what they get wrong or it's that being so conservative that you are becoming mixed in with everybody else. You're not standing out. Like everyone is becoming so fearful of saying anything wrong that everything for me is starting to become very beige. Like everything is
Right.
starting to look the same.
All blending together because it all looks the
Yeah.
same.
I think that is, and I understand the fear, but I think that is just not gonna help them in the long run because
Mhm.
nobody's standing out. No one is taking the high ground and saying, "Look at me, look what I stand for." Everyone's just saying, just kinda tone it down, just play it safe, and I think playing it safe is just everyone's just kind of blending in, I think right now, and I think hopefully that will change, but I'm not too sure how long it will take for it to change in this market. And I think that's been happening for the last past not just the last past few years, but I think for the last past 10, 15 years. I
Mhm.
think it's become very beige.
Mhm.
And also with people no longer, watching commercials because everyone's streaming, you're not seeing a lot of that communication that's out there anymore. So I think
Mhm.
brands need to be more creative to get their voices heard. And I think, not only going into a different environment, but if you're going into that different environment, you need to be creative in order to be heard.
So you mentioned, AI as one thing that you're currently, using to spark creativity. or used for business
Mhm.
purposes. But are there any other trends or technologies or cultural shifts that are exciting for you right now?
You know what? I mean, there's a lot of great stuff happening in social media, but again, it's trying to pick out those people who are doing something unique.
Hmm.
'Cause I know it's a big deal for people to kind of follow trends because that, again, I said before, that's what's kind of sparking interest in the audience out there. But I can't say there is any. For me, it's just trying to look for that spark that people are doing differently. Like,
Hmm.
what are people doing differently that someone else is not doing? Who was almost like creating that trend that other people wanna follow? I mean, I that's what I love to see. You can only see so many videos of people walking up to another person with a microphone and say, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" It's
Yeah.
just like it's become so formulaic that you know, those little nuggets that kind of pop out of people who are doing something different are few and far between. And sometimes the only time you see those little nuggets are in award shows. It's like, oh my God, I wish I had seen that when it was actually like live and kind of, being able to kind of participate and communicate, be part of the conversation.
Do you ever get those magazines like Communication Arts or the Lerzer Archives or anything like that where it highlights artists or
Um,
advertisements?
I used to get, the monthly CA magazine, Communication Arts magazine, but now I just try to find the award shows and see, okay,
Hmm.
what has won, what has kinda stood out amongst the, hundreds or thousands of submissions that went through.
Are there certain award shows that you're particularly interested in?
Yeah, Communication Arts, The One Show, the D&AD, which is out of London,
Okay.
Lions, Cannes
Hmm.
Awards, which are really big in, I think really covers the world from, like, end to end when
Yeah,
it
more of
comes
an
to
international
communication.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see what won because they really have that locked down, and you wanna see what's won, you have to kind of, sign up for a subscription, which isn't so bad, but the subscription is really expensive.
Yeah, I imagine
You
so.
just keep Googling until someone's posted something and it pops up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, what would you give as advice to someone in regards to turning a bad idea into a really great one?
Okay, I mean, I saw that in when you had sent the questions, and I thought, I don't know, a bad idea just stays a bad idea unless you can, like, really lift it up and, like, craft it into a good idea. Like, if it just remains, you know what, it's just this is the idea, it's just, whether it be because, the client doesn't this is what the client wants,
Right.
we
Client
can't
wants
get with
this.
the client anymore. It's not a great idea, but the best we can do is to at least execute it well.
Hmm.
So, it'll stay like a mediocre idea, but at least in execution, we've kind of elevated it a bit. I think that's the most you can do.
If a client came to you with an idea that you're like, oh, that's not great, do you try and persuade them in a better direction?
Absolutely. It's just like, okay, I know this is what you want to do for reasons A, B, and C, but give us an opportunity to come back with you to see if we can come up with something else that still fulfill your objectives. And usually, like, not 10 out of 10 times, but usually you can sway them into a better direction. I mean,
Yeah,
they just
because
basically have something in their head and they just can't get out of it because no one has given them something better.
right, right. So they only know what they know until you show them
Exactly.
better.
So if you can kind of show them something else that, again, you have to build it around. You can't just say this is just a better idea. It has to still fulfill their objectives. And if you can communicate why it it fulfills their objectives and it's a better idea, then usually they will go for the better idea.
Right. Oh, that's fantastic because it's very, what's the word? Demoralizing to have
Oh,
to
absolutely. When it's
work on
just
a
like,
bad project.
I know, and it's not getting any better. But yeah, I mean, again, if this is what the client says, this is the best, this is what I want, the best you can do is try to find at least a surprising way to execute it, maybe.
Mhm. So what do you think your secret is to building a creative team that works well together, where the personalities don't clash?
I have never built a creative team, but in the agencies I have worked with, you everyone that works within a department has to have this not the same personality, but have to be willing to work with each other, communicate with each other. As soon as you get someone in there that is aggressive, is who thinks they're better than everybody else, and even though they might be a great creative person and they might be a better creative person than some people on the team, but as soon as they interject that attitude within a creative department, things start to go sour. So I think really you have to find the right personalities for the creative department. I mean, in order for it to function well and it to be a great place to work and a great place to feed off of other people's energy and other people's
Mhm.
ideas as well.
And
It
company culture plays a huge factor.
Yeah, and the last thing you ever wanna go to is a person who is just nasty and show them an idea. So you know
Mhm.
they're just gonna cut it down because it was even if it's a great idea, they're gonna cut it down because it wasn't their idea. So I think personalities really matter in a creative department. Yes, they have to be talented, but they have to fit the personality of the department.
Yeah, and I think communication plays a key role as well. Like, you need to be
Mhm.
able to, like, keep everyone in the loop and be able to convey your ideas well so that it's makes sense to people and that kinda thing.
Yeah, and
Um
it has to be, an environment where people are willing to listen to what you have to say and help you and nurture you along the way and help not only build their own ideas, but build your ideas as well. Like, even if they don't get credit for it, as soon as someone says, if I'm not going to get credit for it, I'm not going to help you with it. Well, again, that attitude starts to sour that department, right?
Mhm,
You have to
mhm.
be willing to be, if creative is the objective, is you have to be willing to help other people out as well to kind of build their ideas and make them better.
I like that, and having been to a few other countries, like I was in Japan recently, um, I find the culture is much more community oriented and looking out for other people, and it's not like self-centered. And I feel like North American people are much more just focused on their own, you know, job and career and looking out for themselves and not really worrying about other people, not really um, taking the time to mentor people as much. I feel
Yeah.
like
And
it's
you
just
know
a
what?
different attitude here.
Exactly. And the creative directors that I have worked with, they weren't working creative directors in the sense they weren't sitting there coming up with ideas. Their job was to build a department and kind of build that camaraderie and build that community within that department in order for it to function and to be the best department possible to create, executions for brands. So those people exist. I think nowadays there might be few and far between, but in order for a department to thrive, you need someone who wants to build a community. Yeah, exactly, in their department.
All right. Before I sign off, I just want to ask you one last question, and I want to know if there are any projects you've worked on in your history that you really were proud of, or you really liked, or you thought were different, um, that were successful.
Yeah, there were a few that were actually, there were a few campaigns we did for Nike Women's, which was great. We had a great client. He was from the US. He came up to Canada and he said, "You know what? I am never going to be able to do anything for Nike Canada because they're going to tell me the US can do it. You just pick it up from the US." And he really wanted to build something before he moved on to his next spot or position within Nike. So US wasn't doing anything to promote women in sport at the time. He said, "This is my only opportunity right now for me to do something in Canada." And where they'll say, "Well, you guys, we want to promote this in Canada, women in sport. You guys aren't doing anything, so I have to do something on my own." So we created a couple of campaigns for Nike Canada, and they were great. They won awards, they got acknowledged in the industry, so that was probably one of the greatest.
That's so
campaigns that
cool.
we ended up work with.
What do you think it was about it that made it so successful?
Again, it's finding that insight that resonates with your target market. It's that's what advertising, I think, for me was like so fun and so great, is trying to find that insight, trying to tap into the consumer and creating something that they look at and say, "Oh yeah, I get it. Like, yeah, you get me." And that's great. I mean, the awards are wonderful because yes, that shows acknowledgement that the work was good. But when you hear people saying, "Oh, I love that campaign. I remember that campaign. That was great." That I think that is what, makes it all worthwhile. Those late nights, working weekends, all that is what makes it worthwhile.
Mhm. Was it like a video campaign or like a
It was
print?
video, it was television, it was print, it was direct mail, and I'm going back, like, probably 25 years, so no one's gonna
So cool.
remember it, but it was something I still look back and say that was one of my proudest moments.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. That's really neat. I love hearing about people's success stories and learning about how they do their work and how they got to be where they are. So
Yeah.
I really want to thank you for talking with me
Well,
today.
thank
And
you so much for inviting me to speak with you.
all right.
Appreciate it.
That's it for this episode of Creative Wonder with Tay. Thanks for giving it a listen. This podcast is produced by Tay Photography. Yes, that's me, still behind the camera and the mic. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to follow the show, leave a comment or rating, and share it with someone who'd love it too. It really makes a difference. And if you need commercial photography that actually grabs attention instead of getting lost in the scroll, get in touch. My goal is to take the chaos out of commercial shoots and turn them into a smooth, easy process. You can find me online at tay.ca or on Instagram at tay_creatives. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.